Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Multifamily Talks Live. I'm Krista Hurley, Industry Principal for RealPage. And if this is your first time joining us, Multifamily Talks Live is our monthly video series where we dive into trends, challenges, and opportunities shaping multifamily. Think live, candid conversations in a bite-sized format. If you can't catch us live, don't worry. You can always watch or listen to the replay using the link below or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're here, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss future episodes. And also, please jump into the comments. That's where we're going to be asking the questions to our guest speakers, hopefully getting you some great answers. Now, today we're tackling a topic that I know is front and center for everyone, budget season. It might still be a few months away on the calendar, but for many operators, the prep work has already started. And I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible guests who bring different but equally valuable perspectives. Abe Bullman, Software Support Manager at Arlington Properties with a background at RealPage that gives him deep insight into the technology behind multifamily budgeting. He brings practical understanding of how to optimize budgeting workflows through better use of software and data. And Judy Olive, CFO and co-founder of Landmark Property Services and a multifamily industry veteran. She brings decades of hands-on operational experience and a deep understanding of how to lead teams through the complexities of budget season. Between the two of them, you're going to hear both the big picture strategy and the practical day-to-day realities that make or break a smooth budget season. So Abe, Judy, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your respective companies?
Yeah, Judy, ladies first.
Thanks, Abe. Thanks, Krista. Again, I'm with Landmark Property Services. We manage pretty much Class B, C properties in the Mid-East, Virginia, North Carolina, and been doing this in budgets for more years than I'd like to say.
Lovely. Abe, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm Abe Bullman. I am the Software Support Manager at Arlington Properties. I joined Arlington Properties in January. I did come from RealPage. I spent 12 years at RealPage in a variety of roles, but the last spot was the product manager for RealPage budgeting. So really excited to kind of be on the client side of things and working directly with the site staffs and the regionals and the team to get to build budgets here at Arlington. And we're about 30,000 units based out of the Southeast mainly with a growing footprint across the country. We're about to open up a new property in Denver. So, we're finally moving west of Texas. So
Super exciting times. Well, we all know budget season often feels like a sprint at the end, but in reality, the groundwork for a successful cycle starts months in advance. So Abe, I'd like to start with you. When do you guys actually begin your planning process, and what does that early phase look like? Is it all about gathering data, aligning the stakeholders, or something else entirely?
for us, it's always we break it's all year round, right? And we all kind of gone to that point where it's a never ending cycle. So really, I'll break it down into a couple things. Q1, we're really spending looking at, getting our forecasts open and ready for people to start working on. We're really looking and doing a debrief of what happened, what went really well in our boot camps, what did not, where can we learn and grow, how can we implement that. That gets us into the summer months where we're really starting to evaluate, what vendors we're selecting, where can we consolidate costs, putting together the scheduling, the timing, the training of things. And then we move into Q3 and 4, which is go time. And we're building budgets and getting those done. And we're trying to be our goal is to be done with those in November this year. So we're starting as early as we can.
Hopefully you're right on track with that. November's not too far away.
Nope.
So Judy, I want to bring you in here because you're living this from the operational side, and July might feel early to some, but you're already laying that foundation for a smoother fall, right? So what are you and your teams doing right now to set yourselves up for success later in the year? And what's one thing that you do now that you wish maybe you had started sooner, maybe in past budget cycles?
Great question. And Abe, we're very similar to you. You can never start soon enough, in my opinion. But you don't want to start like in January because people are like in a break season. But we've already begun our planning process several weeks ago by determining the schedule for the final budget week, the final push. And then we work backwards from that date. We already have notified our team members involved in the budget process about the timeline so that everyone is aware of when each task needs to be completed. Scheduling deadlines by starting with the final due date and again, working backwards. I would say this approach has been very effective in the past 2 years. We didn't do this at the beginning. So implementing this method has been really, very, very helpful. This planning helps reduce last minute pressure to complete the budgets. While some tasks may still be postponed, all the team members involved are now clear with their respective deadlines and know who comes first and who comes last and everywhere in between. So schedule just makes it a much smoother process.
Yeah, and then making them feel like they're part of a bigger picture, right? That budget is everywhere in a business, and so that definitely makes sense. Thanks so much. So let's talk expenses for just a second, because there is one thing that's changed dramatically over the last few years, and it's cost control. So insurance, utilities, labor, they're all climbing, and the margin for error is shrinking. Abe, when you're looking across a portfolio, what are the controllable expense categories you're watching most closely this year?
I mean, for us, it's every single expense. Where can we save a dime, right? And where can we really do that? So for us, it's really evaluating vendors. It's looking at, are we spending correctly? Are we putting together, our approval processes for being able to spend properly? So we're kind of ahead of the game in that sense. But in terms of budgeting, one of the biggest things that we really like to do is look at our budget variance, from a year-to-date perspective, and just really understand what's driving that variance. Is the budget, do we budget bad for this thing? And that's what's causing the big variance. The kind of the actual is really accurate. It's the budget that's wrong. And by doing so, it allows us to find those pain points of where we're having, like, oh my gosh, all these people are having to approve invoices constantly through our invoice processing system, right? It's typically because we budgeted in correctly for something, and that's what's driving that. So that's one way we do that.
So, and Judy, on the flip side, I know you've had to make some tough calls at the site level. And so how have you made any unexpected cuts or pivots in spending strategy that others might learn from?
There have been a few, if any, unexpected budget cuts.
Love to hear that.
Me too. But we're very committed to empowering our teams to, be involved in the financial statement process, to look at those variances. And we put considerable effort into the budgeting process to ensure that we operate the properties within those established budget guardrails. So once you've set the budget and the teams understand that if they have to step outside of that budget, that's when we have to talk and find out where we might cut. But additionally, one thing we've done is we've started working closely with our vendor partners and have recently partnered with a group specializing in vetting contracts. So that will help our teams, our regionals, our property managers to obtain competitive bids and to make sure and secure the most favorable contract in the value of the terms of that contract. So those type of situations, we believe that this initiative will provide significant assurance to our owners and for each signed contract that it's both cost effective and optimal for our operations so that we don't have to make those unexpected cuts.
Well, and I love to hear that too, because, and I just want to hover around that because there's a lot of subjectivity of who you like to work with when it comes to a vendor, and maybe it's a personal a friendship or partnership there, and it's who we've always used, right? And so you're just reevaluating that from a better stance. So I love to hear that, Judy.
That's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get away from that for sure. Okay, so for both of you, and let's start with Judy, how do you handle those uncontrollable costs? I know we're talking about cuts here, but the uncontrollable ones that you didn't even know were there, that just keep going up, like insurance or utilities. And are you building in buffers, maybe adjusting your forecast or finding those creative offsets?
These uncontrollable expenses for the past 3 or 4 years have just been really uncontrollable. But it's important, yes, to manage that. You need to set a budget for the insurance, we try to talk at least 6 to 8 months, interestingly enough, before the policy even renews to see what they're seeing in the marketplace so you can somewhat know what to budget. The collaboration just ensures that, you're reviewing your asset to make sure it's appropriately valued, avoiding both undervalue and overvaluation, and that the coverage is sourced efficiently and cost effectively. For utilities, water, sewer, electricity, and waste removal, it's I don't think I've ever said not to include a buffer for your utilities. So you just need to implement systems to help monitor the usage and then compare that year over year and lean in again on those utility resources. Incorporating energy efficient components and properly identifying leaks, those can further control costs. If your budget allows, consider applying, I say, a double-digit buffer to start for these expenses, and then you can back those off to get to the point where the ownership or investment group are happy. While insurance carriers may project, increases of 7 to 8%, it's prudent to budget slightly higher.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great tip too, because you also don't, you need to make sure you have that buffer in place, like you said, but being over budget and under budget is looked at the same way, right? So you have to make sure that
Right.
you're reallocating that in the right areas for that buffer. So I love to hear that. Now let's shift gears to technology. So budget season is prime time for operators to reevaluate their tech stack. Like you were saying earlier, Abe, what's essential, what's delivering value, and what might need to go. So Abe, from your portfolio perspective, how are you guys approaching those decisions, especially as you said, it's kind of in the right now timetable?
I mean, for us, it's really just making sure that the software, the technology stacks we're using are aligning and providing value back to our properties. If they're not making their day-to-day life easier, we are putting it under our microscope and figuring out what we need to do. Does that mean another vendor? Does that mean bringing it in and consolidating it around one vendor to make that better? Those are things we're looking at. But other than that, it's really just making sure that, marketing, are we getting the value out of, these different vendors? Are they giving us what we need? Do we need to adjust that spend there? Anytime we can look at those things and really evaluate and analyze, are we getting the most bang for our buck? We're doing that, and it's helping us, make better decisions on where to spend money and where to shift things when we can.
Awesome. So Judy, I want your take here because I think a lot of operators wrestle with this. If a tool is not clearly delivering value, do you cut it or do you double down and retrain your teams to get more out of it?
Probably yes to both. If a technology tool doesn't deliver, like Abe said, measurable time savings, generate revenue within a targeted time frame, you just have to pivot and do it fast. It's best practice to begin implementation with a smaller group of properties, if it's a brand new kind of, leading edge piece of software. But, during budget planning, we evaluate every tech stack and determine, are they necessities or is it discretionary? Your PMSs, your CMS, your websites, those are necessities, but some may have some discretionary capabilities. Irregardless, conducting an annual review of the current stack is crucial. Decisions regarding retaining or removal should be discussed at every level within the organization. Direct feedback should be solicited from the users to determine whether these tools generally support their workflow or to create additional tasks. The key is just keeping open communication between the leadership team and the site teams is super essential. Team members must understand the intended benefits as well and the purposes of each technology solution that's presented. While leadership should also just listen to the input from the site folks regarding these tools, because the leadership may think it's the best thing, but if it's not, again, increasing time back to the employees and cost effective, it should just be tossed away.
Yeah, I love that. You definitely need their buy-in. So educating the why, know your why from your company standpoint, and then,
Right.
Sit back and allow them to give that feedback based on that why. So awesome. Anything to add on that, Abe? Yeah.
It's hard enough to do this, let alone making it harder for ourselves by having a software or a solution that's just not doing it, providing value to them. So, same like Judy said, if it's not working for us, we're getting rid of it.
Yeah. Well, good. Now, one thing that I've heard over and over is that budgeting is no longer just a finance exercise. It's like a team sport. So if you don't have the right voices in the room, you're setting yourself up for those missed opportunities or unrealistic plans. So this is kind of aligning on, getting that buy-in. Abe, who do you make sure is at the table during budgeting, and how do you keep everyone aligned across asset management, finance, and even those in the weeds, boots to the ground operations team?
One thing we're doing this year, especially for our owners and asset managers, is we're really pushing out ahead of time, an expectation that they would like to have, right? So what lease renewal percentage do you want us to have? So we're trying to really get in front of what their expectations are right from the very beginning, so that we're not having to play this, well, I thought you wanted this and you thought, no, let's not do that. You put these metrics down, let's build the budget around that. That really helps us from that perspective. But we get everybody's input, maintenance teams, every person who can provide some sort of feedback on the budget and guidance on the budget, we're getting their 2 cents, right? The community manager really circles around doing the heavy lifting, but we're getting buy-in and input from every single level inside and outside of the organization.
Perfect. And Judy, what about you? Have you changed how you involve your site teams in the process over the years, or maybe what impact has that had over the accuracy and the buy-in of those teams?
Yeah, actually, last year marked the first time we truly have ever included our site teams. They maybe gave us their wish list and the things they would like to do, but last year marked where they were truly involved in actually entering the budget and looking at it. And by involving them and giving the opportunity to understand the budget, as well as now they're reviewing quarterly financials, the teams have gained such a greater insight into the financial management and the financial health of their community that I believe this approach has just contributed to the improved, adherence to the budget guidelines, and has resulted in actual increased revenue. The budget's now viewed collectively rather than individually.
Wow. I wonder, and this is a sidebar question, but I wonder if that's caused stickiness with your site teams, having them more involved in knowing the impact of their day-to-day in that budget. Judy, do you have any insights on the stickiness of your team? I know.
No, actually, they were all very excited. And I guess, again, I hate to keep using the word empowered, but they felt like they were now a part of almost like the owners of the property, that their opinion and their thoughts were valued. So every one of them thought it was great. And, now they're actually, economically incentivized off of all that. So, it does mean a lot to them, and I think they feel very, very important. So
it's got to be rewarding for you too to have team members like that. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So let's pivot from expenses to revenue for a second. And according to RealPage, over 227,000 units were absorbed at the end of Q2 this year, pushing annual demand to a record high, even as new deliveries declined sharply. That level of absorption highlights just how urgent revenue generation has become for operators. And with rent growth stagnating, creativity is no longer optional, it's essential. So, Abe, as you look ahead to 2026, how are you thinking about driving revenue growth in a way that doesn't put undue pressure on your residents or the teams?
Any place we can find more money, we're looking for it. For us, it's really making sure that we're driving traffic to the property, right? If we're getting people to come through the front door, come through the website, then we're going to be able to push rents in a lot of situations because we've got the people there to do it. So making sure that spend is in the right place and we're driving that traffic to the property is one great way. Where, optimizing the websites with SEO, doing all of those things to make sure that traffic is showing up. And by doing so, it's helping us drive that occupancy as best we can and pushing rents whenever we can as well to try to increase our revenue where we can.
Awesome. So Judy, on what role does ancillary income play in your planning? And are there any areas where you're seeing untapped opportunities?
It's an important consideration. I agree with everything Abe just said, and rising revenue often correlates with the increased costs for our community residents. So to achieve a positive outcome, it's essential to offer residents services or products that enhance their quality of life while they're at your community. So the challenge is really to generate ancillary income without imposing additional costs on the residents.
Right.
So one effective approach is to review your vendor list and identify those with whom you maybe have the most significant relationship and the most spend, and to negotiate with them to secure the best possible pricing based on your level of spend. And during the budget planning, assess the categories such as supplies. Maybe you have a partnership with Lowe's or Home Depot, your carpet vendors, your painters, and explore potential partnership discounts, all while not classified as ancillary income. They are realized savings within the controllable expenses. So it's just hard to right now pinpoint, because I think every rock has been unturned for ancillary income. And so we're trying to be very super sensitive to increasing the actual cost for the communities. And if we do increase, what value does that bring back to them?
Yeah, and really have that evaluator. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So we are coming up on the end. So I want to leave our audiences with some practical wisdom. I mean, not that it hasn't been. We've had lots of golden nuggets here today. But Judy, looking back over your career, what's a mistake or maybe a painful lesson that you've learned the hard way during budget season that you'd never like to repeat again?
Well, I would not like to return to pen and paper. So I appreciate that we now have tools that help us with that. So, but it's far more effective to use a budgeting tool integrated within your property management system. I'm a firm believer that exporting data and building budget models outside of a core platform just increases the risk of the data integrity. When you have humans touching the data and moving it around, there's just an opportunity for integrity issues. I mean, my experience in consolidating multiple systems into one model has proven to be time-consuming and at times very inefficient. By leveraging an integrated budgeting solution that captures lease data for income projections, contract information for expense forecasting, your loan mortgage data, your management fee calculation, your payroll information, you can just streamline so much in one, integrated budgeting system that really all you're focusing in on are a very few key items. While Excel offers a lot of flexibility, and overlooking a formula or failing to replicate it can certainly cause a huge impact to a budget accuracy and profitability. So just the ability to have it in all one system is just invaluable.
I love that. And before I end with a question to you, Abe, we do have a question from Ricky A. He's curious, what is your specific software stacks? So Judy, I'll start with you, considering you just kind of said, have it all in one.
Yes. So we're a RealPage client. So we have pretty much all of their leasing and rents and every other hanging off model, from spend to accounting, everything. So it does make it much easier to have it all in one system. And therefore it can pull your leasing and rents. It can pull your expenses from accounting. It can pull, prior year's budgets. So, again, having come from prior years of having multiple systems hanging off of each other just made it very difficult. So 10 years ago, we decided we were going to make things simple.
Awesome. So Abe, what's your number one tip for newer operators or lean teams who are starting down the budget season train and feeling a little bit overwhelmed?
First, it would be, obviously, like Judy said, if you're using something like Excel, I always tell people Excel's great because you can do whatever you want, but you can do whatever you want, which is not good sometimes, So if you have a platform that will allow you to kind of work in, more efficiently across maybe a larger scale, for instance, being able to upload information to multiple properties at one time, or to be able to build a worksheet that helps calculate certain things like management fees or application fees, costs like that, things that'll help you do things at a greater scale is really what you're looking for. And then other than that, the biggest thing is get out in front of it. Even if it's just spending a little bit of time. I've talked to my teams all day about go do one thing. I'm not asking you to eat the elephant in one sitting. Go just take one little bite and then do another one tomorrow and then another one tomorrow. And what you're going to find is we're going to wake up. It's going to be Thanksgiving and we're like, oh, it's done. We finished, right? And it didn't seem bad. Well, it seems bad because it's like, uh-oh, it's due tomorrow. And now I got to do it all. And that's where I think more often than not, because if you're on a lean team, you may be 8 different jobs, right? CFO, you're also the property manager, you're the regional, you're an accountant, so you're doing 30 jobs. You need to figure out where you can make that efficient. And I think it's just getting out in front of it and doing things in the bulk as much as you can.
Yeah, in incremental steps. So much like what Heather Hilliard stated in the comments, staying informed, knowledge is power. So, yeah, take those small bites, like Abe was saying. Well, Abe and Judy, thank you so much for such a thoughtful and practical conversation. And to everyone watching, thank you for joining us for another episode of Multifamily Talks Live. Be sure to follow RealPage here on LinkedIn so you don't miss future sessions. And if you found today helpful, share the replay with your teams as you head into budget prep. We'll see you next month with another timely topic. And until then, good luck getting ahead of budget season and have a great day.